Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Zen Lounge. We've had a massive day in crypto today. A few projects announced their tokenization stock platforms. This is setting up, I personally believe, sologenic Coreum for, a massive potential bull rally, especially when they drop their news. I brought my friend BRW Solo. He came on the show before. We talked about the solo charts. We're going to go deeper into it. We're going to talk about sologenic Coreum from the charts and like a technical analysis view from BRW Solo. So welcome to the show.
Oh, appreciate that, Zen. Thanks again for having me on.
So yeah, tell us what you're seeing in the charts for us, dude.
Yeah. Uh, so some pretty interesting things. Let's see. Let me get to a famous chart here is Solo. So same setup, same everything. The hardest thing to figure out on all of this is timing. So obviously we didn't have a good June like I thought. So what I'm looking here is, well, we have a good accumulation structure here. So basically, if you're familiar, it's Wyckoff accumulation. And what I'm seeing here for Solo is also the same thing for Corium. And we're going to have alt season, but it's going to be on the market makers time. So maybe I'll show you some pointers here, what I'm looking for, right? So simple thing here. Let me pull up Corium for a second. Got to find it. There's too many charts here. There we go. So I'm looking at Corium right here. And we got a simple setup here. And all I'm looking at is, somewhat subjective. I'm identifying certain areas here, right? So you got a preliminary support, all this other stuff here. Doesn't matter. It's not what's important. What matters is the structure, the setup, and then eventually you're going to want to know the price, right? So I think Corium's really good. And I think Solo is really good. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So if I'm looking at why we haven't blown up yet, if you go more on the macro side, we have not done things for the Bitcoin stuff, like in terms of the rotation on the Bitcoin dominance, and we haven't seen the full the macro side of things, even on the stock market. Right, we're still waiting for expansion, true expansion, and it plays out with the 6 month candle. So everything has to do with this 6 month candle. We just closed literally 2 hours ago the last 6 months. So now we're starting almost every candle, every major candle now. So if you look at Corium here, I'm gonna make it quick and simple. If you can identify one real important structure, which is right here where I'm circling, it's called the spring. This is the spring right here. Okay. This is important because now we can identify, and as a matter of fact, let me go back to Solo. Solo's got the same thing right there. You can see that, right? It's very important because we're actually working on the first phase of that markup. So that's important. So if I look, one more thing to give congruence to all of this, if I'm looking at Corium, I'm looking at the RSI right here. We had a fake out and we didn't break out this 50 line, but that 50 line is going to be your bull market. That's important. If I go back to Solo, we're holding support on that 50 line. So we're going to get going here very soon. But another key thing to look at, stochastic RSI right here. This is on the monthly. That momentum is flipping. That's good. Do we have that on core? Yes, we do. That's flipping. That's another great sign. And even then, I'm going to turn on some volume here. No pun intended. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's look at Corium for a second. So I'm flipping through these charts because I'm really trying to show you the comparison. But if you look right, this candle right here, this was June. And if you look down right here, that volume is picking up. That's a sign. That's usually a good sign in a Wyckoff structure because that potentially means, well, we know, I'm sure I know that this next month is going to be huge. And if I were to go back one more time at, and I'm going to delete some of these lines here, maybe all of them for a second. And I'm going to show you something. What I thought was interesting was I thought when we had sologenic, this structure, this 81% crash, there is a what I thought was a bullish engulfing candle, which would have meant that the next month would have gone parabolic. So potentially this is an invalid or a suppressed bullish. I think it's more suppressed. It's suppressed bullish engulfing candle. So our June didn't play out. But is that a bad thing? No, because the way I say it is it's technically compression, not suppression. I mentioned that in my post. But this is important because whatever this breakout is coming, this next one, it's going to be a big one. And I really think, I mean, it's possible you could see $1.50 as early as this week. We're in July, so it can definitely happen. So, but I'll hand it to you for now. So whatever you think.
Well, it seemed like that was like the short-term updates. Last time we talked about Sologenic, we went really deep into it, right? So we went into like the full potential. Like you showed us like a long-term view of Corium. Can we do that with Corium, like a long-term
Yeah.
perspective? Like, what do you
So let
think is
me,
like the if like what would you think the peaks of it would be? Like, how do you think it's going to play out?
yeah, yeah. So a couple points on that. So if I'm going to look at solo here, right? Let's just because there's a reason why I have to use solo to measure corium. If I take this move here, this large candle, sorry, I'm going to get rid of these lines one more time again. And I'm going to take a measured move here to there. We're talking just that pole is about 1,000%, but from down here to the top, it's 1,300%. If I go to Corium, let's go the other way. I've already measured it. It's about 600. Just take my word for it. But it's where the test would be. This right here, this test. That's about 600%. So it's telling me like, all right, maybe Corium's about half. And we see that, structurally here, that usually the moves are about half. That would make sense because the supply is about half, right? And again, if there isn't as much volume being traded on Corium as much as Solo, I think it's because Solo is a little bit more easier, more direct, bigger market cap. So if I'm going to measure here with the Wyckoff structure, it's really hard to use Fibonacci in general as the whole because you got this big wick here on this side, if you can see. So in the very beginning, and I actually don't even remember what this was. I think it was an airdrop. Maybe it was an airdrop or an anticipation for it. But when we had this and we started to create this Wyckoff structure, there's something that a lot of people don't understand that I figured out here, or at least thought about. And when you have a long range, right, that saying is the longer the base, higher in space, or that's the line, right? Um, when you have a structure like this with such a tiny supply, that's what we have. You could go to the stock market, you can go to commodities, you could go to other big blue chip type cryptos. And if you see how they have a huge supply, like in the billions or whatever, and they have a short range Wyckoff, it's not going to play out the way you think. This is going to be a powerful move because you have a long consolidation, and then you have very limited supply. And so your market makers, they're buying this up, and we know that because they're suppressing it perfectly because it's a very identifiable Wyckoff structure. So if I'm looking at it like this, we have a trend line right here for Corium. We have, well, you could consider this 1 point, 2 point, 3 points. So Corium doesn't need to break more than 20 cents. You're looking at 20 cents and we're going to start going hard. Now, I'm still thinking there might be another move, a sign of strength. We're going to start have another leg to build up. So it's another phase of the markup phase. And if you're going to try to get the price on this, going to be a little bit harder to identify the exact price because it is Wyckoff. There is really no Fibonacci that I can point from one point to another. Like Solo, I think Solo is a little bit more, it's structured well. And you have more history, of course, too. But if I'm going to guess, because this is just me using my best from the just understanding Wyckoff, you're probably going to get It's probably going to double this structure. So I was thinking $20 is a great place to look at if you're going to think long term. Now 35 is in the cards because it is actually replicating Theta networks, and I have this on the post. But Theta coin, Theta network, its structure is very similar. But the problem with Theta is that it didn't. Its structure was very short in its consolidation time frame. So I'll leave it at that. If you think there's anything else you'd like to add.
So you said this one target right here, the sign of strength, $2. So
Yeah,
what time horizon do you think that would happen according to
yeah.
your like view on this?
So I would say, well, it's probably going to be between now and August. So my best guess for now, subject to change, is the way I look at how Bitcoin dominance is going to flip. We're going to expect to see
Well, go ahead.
potentially two moves this year, two big moves. That's what I
So,
think.
do you think that one of these moves could happen, like the Bitcoin rotation could happen when, I don't know if you follow traditional finance, but when there's been rumors of Trump replacing the Fed and basically lowering interest rates. Could that cause like the altcoin bull rally or like help it?
I've actually had a lot of discussion with a lot of smart people about this, and I have a theory that the Jerome Powell isn't actually cutting rates because he's reacting to certain things. Maybe he's in bed with Wall Street, right? Maybe they tell him when to cut rates. Maybe it's not that the charts or the markets move because of the rates, but they're actually reacting. Or I'm sorry, they're not. Let me say it again. That it's not that Jerome Powell is reacting, is not cutting his rates because he's reacting to his own thing. It's because he's reacting to the charts. Maybe that's how it is. Because the way it is, I mean, sometimes it looks like it's set up perfectly for a rate cut to happen here very soon. It makes sense that it didn't happen in May or June. And I actually thought that that wouldn't be the case. I always thought maybe July or August would have been the best bet, which makes sense for Bitcoin dominance to flip. And then you have your end of the move at the end of the year, which would kind of line with the end of the cycle, that 4 year happening kind of cycle.
So you think it's all based on timing the charts and the charts look primed right now?
Oh yeah, very much so. I mean, when you have a very nice like Corium, it really is textbook and it's Wyckoff. I mean, you just look at it. Again, I said like if you just identify the spring, we're in our first leg. We're probably gonna have a second one. Don't worry about timing here. Although it can still play like, hey, we hit $2, come down, maybe not here, right? You don't know. We don't know. Maybe a lot of people who are staking their coins, they want to take their profits, right? We're gonna have a lot of shakeup and rotation with people who've been accumulating holding for a long time. Maybe there is a pressure to sell off here and cool down again. It's going to be your last point of support. And then towards the end of the year, you're going to have your last hurrah because if we do a measured move here, let's say from this sinus support, which was at $2, and I believe there's a measured Fibonacci there. But if I am just to identify where this is just to $20, that's 887%. And if we go to solo, for example, if I am, this is why I think if we hit our all-time highs here soon, and then we have exchanges opening solo up to the public with such a limited supply, I mean, you're going to start seeing a huge move because even from the base here to, let's say, I'm going to have to move like $80. I mean,
What the fuck?
it's
80
less than
bucks.
2,000%. So someone's putting a couple $1,000, he's only going to make 2,000%. That's not really good for people who are in crypto, right? And now if you go from this wick, it's like 1,000%. So if you get in at $6, you're not going to make as much unless you have a lot of capital. But for people who are buying in this range, uh, definitely. If you bought around 18 cents, then yeah, I think this just keep holding. This is part of what Wyckoff does. It's time compression, and that's the worst part of it. But the beautiful part of it is that you have almost I don't want to say guarantee because you're not allowed to use that word in markets, but it's almost like that because the structure gives you the confidence.
So you're very confident with these two charts.
So far, I am, yeah, and especially with if I could add one more thing. When I drew that Gann fan, I don't know if I talked about this in great detail. I just go swing high to swing low, and I was liking how this got rejected. So it's respecting this line, right? Very awesome that it's doing that. But even if we go the other way, which would be your low to high, so this is your macro, and I have to explain this part because this is a very interesting thing that I've never really talked about. But if you measure from swing low to swing high from the very beginning, so this is the buildup. So inception to build up, then you have your point just before the end of the alt rally. This right here, see how that calculated line is a gold line? I didn't put that there. That's a calculated line. But you see how it reacts here? We got a crash, a big, like whatever that is, it freaked out, said, "Oh no, we want to hold this as support because it never had a full body close here." You top out here, but what happened when we broke this 2-1 line was not only just a terrible sell off, this was your selling climax, then you came down, another Wyckoff type of structure. You have your automatic rally, phase B, spring test. Now we're in this first phase of the markup. And so, what does this tell me? It tells me we're going to retest this line. So, if you really think like that's not possible, let's see. I mean, from where we are here to here at the end of the year, it depends when in the year we're going to hit it. But yeah, it's a 30,000% left to go. With the
What
limited
the hell?
supply, with the range that's been going on here accumulating, that's absolutely possible. I've seen that. And this is not my first rodeo in seeing this because I've been in it for 8 years, but I'm absolutely confident that'll happen. Will we stay there? Probably not. You better sell quick, maybe. So excited a little
Wow.
bit. But even
Look at
one,
get that ridiculous that fast. That's how solo
oh yeah,
always moves, right? Like what was the last one? How many percentage did it go in like 5 days?
yeah. Nine
What was
days
it?
it was like a
In
thousand
nine
percent.
days, 1,000%.
Yeah, yeah.
Then had
And even
81% correction after.
exactly, that was
Yeah.
brutal. I know that the timing part of things. But even then,
Yeah.
you just look at the RSI on the monthly, and that gives you all
It
of the
does that. It just seems like it just goes ballistic and then just like cools down and it just goes
yeah.
ballistic and then you got and you get
XRP does the same.
yeah, XRP does the same thing, man. It gets you hooked, like that
Yeah,
rush. It's
yeah,
exciting when it happens. So like especially when you have your bags packed. It sucks when when it happens and you're not prepared and you're like, fuck, I should have bought more. But
yeah.
we've been like so convicted and so dedicated that won't be us. We'll be hyped.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm always listening to you for the news, and that feeds me. And then I just make sure I take that.
Let's bring up one thing today because the Robinhood is launching on that Ethereum too. So I want to bring up one quick point why COREUM technology is superior is there was about 83 hacks last year reported alone, like over $1 billion exploited on Ethereum layer twos. They're not natively interoperable as COREUM's tech stack is. I did do some research, like central banks have been studying the same tech that COREUM is using, so it's like we're definitely in the best technology, and I think that we have a good team. So everything that's coming, the announcements that are coming, especially because also Corium's only that I've seen so far that's also targeting the USA resident market. Just that news alone could really, with the right marketing strategy, could potentially help us hit these unreal numbers. Could we? How long have you been in crypto? When you remember, like there has been cryptos that do insane percentages that defy everyone's logic. Why wouldn't a coin like Corium and Solo be able to do that if they accomplish what we think they could accomplish, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen it all. I mean, that's all I've been doing. If I close my eyes, sometimes I'll just like, it's a burn image of a chart. So when I see Ethereum, it hits 1,000,000%. Of course, I mean, it makes sense. It was the chosen layer one blockchain for a long time for smart contract development. But, I was trying to understand, is it the coin? Is there some special about the coin that really moves? It's really not. It really is what like Bob Ross was saying. The first coin, whoever's the first one to tackle it, will usually reap the greatest rewards out of that. So um, the technology and the hype is all focused towards tokenization, and we know that. So this is where I want to be investing. If anybody talks to me about really any other type of thing, I'm gonna always ask, hey, has that been priced in? And if it has, then I mean, I might dabble in it, but as a long-term serious investor, I look for things that have not been priced in.
Well, it was awesome having you today, man. Is there anything else you want to show us with these charts? Anything else that's important to for us to know before we call it this stream?
Yeah, I'll finish this in like literally 20 seconds here. If you look at how long Solo's been below this on the monthly, this 50 line, that's since 2022, of the beginning of 2022. Breakout retest, right? Now we're starting to settle in. So just, now is the time to get ready for this move here any month, right? Of course, I'm really optimistic about July. And then the last thing, maybe I'll talk about this even more in depth later on in the future, would be
Let me move my screen.
watching,
Oh, I have my screen in the way.
yeah, would be watching this last thing. We'll talk about this in the future, but this is that rising wedge that it's XRP to Solo, and it's about the dominance. About you're going to see a big
Show
rotation.
us that last slide real quick. I have my screen in the way.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure. The RSI one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be this one right here. So
Oh,
this
no, the
is.
next one?
Oh yeah, you're talking about the XRP to Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let me get that out again. Sorry.
I had our screens in the way. Yeah, that one.
Oh, yeah, my bad. So yeah, pretty much here, this rising wedge, this thing is getting ready to start pouring down hard. You know, we're gonna probably, I don't know how quick, I don't know what the rate is, but it's gonna be important. RSI double topped. We're turning around, so there's a big rotation coming out from your XRP tokens, and your XRP holders are going to learn about Solo. And I think the catalyst is going to be the price. Once you see price going up, they're going to get scared, freak out. It'll be the greatest advertiser. Then you'll start seeing these charts um, show in favor of the dominance for Solo for
Right.
less than the next 6 months. So, but that's it. I made that a little longer than I wanted, but sorry. But a couple things to just look out for.
Yeah, well, things are definitely looking bullish. We went up about 26 cents a day, so I think that you're on the money. I'm excited to see the FOMO kick on when some new news and updates comes because they got to make some announcements after today. So I think you're right. I think this thing's ready this spring, and we're gonna have a solo summer. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna hit you up. We'll do this again. I think we're gonna do something tomorrow, so I'll tell you more about that. And let's keep the momentum going, guys.
yeah,
All right,
for
guys.
sure.
Remember, none of this is financial advice. This is our opinion and speculation only. Have an awesome day and peace.